All right, hello everybody. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss the building a new network with Meraki for our Friday Multicast LLC. The idea for this one is to kind of show you the power of Meraki, which is just much more than the traditional of security, switching, and wireless, and how all these options can come into play to help you with what you're working on. Uh, Kind of a background of what we're going with for today's presentation is the understanding that the Friday Multicast LLC is just it's a small little firm where, let's just say, Jay and I are the two main runners, and the idea is that we do consulting to try and help people with their technical journeys. And so what we're going to be looking at today, and this is where we're going to kind of show what the plan is we're starting up from the ground up. We just spun up, we sent off our LLC, we're ready to start doing business. What are we going to do to make our business run? This is where Office 365 comes in. We're going to use Windows servers. I don't want to get deep into Linux and try and do open software. So we're
Oh,
going to try
come
to keep
on
it kind of
now.
basic. I thought about it, but
Clearly, if we're going with Windows, I must not be the sysadmin in this scenario.
that's right. You
Yeah,
got
I mean, yeah,
debunked,
this looks like a pretty typical, business setup, right? I mean, these are pretty average day-to-day applications most businesses would have.
Yep. And we still got to talk about how we're going to, okay, where we're storing things, and then what web apps are we going to use. So for a consulting firm, we're going to use, QuickBooks for trying to send invoices. We've got Paycor for any hourly input. So you got to think about, all right, we're reaching out to the cloud. There's things that we need to worry about up there, and we have to worry about our ability to access those apps, because if we can't get to them, we lose revenue. There's a lot of consequences if we're not able to access those web apps that we need. Office 365 is also huge because without it, we can't do email. And then we're going to use WebEx meetings and calling, so we don't have call manager on-prem. And that way we can still engage customers. We want to be able to do presentations, kind of like how we are today. And that's also a web base where we're using the internet for everything that's really our interaction, especially with COVID. If we couldn't do personal meetings like we can't right now, we have to have a way to be able to make those connections with customers to help them along the way. So this is kind of just the baseline of what we're looking at. And so we know what applications we're worried about. We know what we're going to use. The next step will be, all right, we're going to build our HQ. Let's say we're inside like a strip mall, or we have a floor on a building. The first thing I always want to start with, that's just extremely important anywhere these days, is security. And so we went
Security
with,
first. I
yeah.
mean, you really can't put it any better, right? I mean, especially as network guys, if we're not thinking about security, then security guys are probably going to strap us down and beat us later on.
Exactly. And so what we went with, mainly because the old stencils on Visio did not have a lot of the new ones, so I went with what was available. And so we're going with an MX84. We're going with active, two of them. But the really awesome thing about Meraki is when you're doing these active passives or active standby, you're only paying for the license of one. So you've got the hardware cost for two, but you're not paying for another license that's being consumed on that standby. It's just the one. You tie it into the dashboard. And so from a business that's really worried about operational expenses, that's nice to know that, okay, I already know what my fixed cost is. I knew what the hardware cost was. There's no surprises if I fell over and suddenly I get a warning that, hey, you're now, not in compliant because you have a device that's using another feature that wasn't licensed. Um, we need the security appliance because this is going to be our protection as we go out to the internet. We don't want people to come in and start probing our networks. We need to also do content filtering. So if we have employees on site, we don't want them reaching out to locations. We don't want them going to Dropbox if they're not supposed to drop financial things off. So there's a lot of protection that this MX will give us to be able to ensure our users are secure and that we're secure from the outside world. And as we do these,
Definitely.
my plan is to see if I can actually exit out. It just takes me all the way back out. So I have this open to where at least show you the models, how there's different options. And so we did, what was it, the 80?
84.
Yeah. And so we
Yeah,
went with
that's kind of a big guy. I mean, that's a good model, I think, for an HQ like that, right? As we grow, we talk about branch sites and that sort of thing. 84 is a good, fairly small aggregator. I mean, obviously we can go a lot bigger with the 100, 450, 250 that are there.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean these things come big or small. the smaller ones, the 65, 67s, 68s. We have those with PoE ports. Honestly, for real small branches, which we'll talk about later, you can even get away with one of those without any switch or anything if you only need a couple hosts hooked up. But you can get them with integrated Wi-Fi, integrated cellular. There's a lot of different options on them now.
Yep, these up here. And so, yeah, I just wanted to show how there's so many different options that kind of really fit your needs. So if you're small, you don't have to buy one of the most expensive large boxes when you have, like, well, I don't need 10 gig connections at these locations. There's options that you can go down. You can sell like the built-in Wi-Fi for some of these if you don't want the access points. So just wanted to show that there are options for these, and these are all off the Meraki site. They do a good job of showing, when we look at the products, what's all available there. And they do a great job on the data sheets, and especially if you click on them, it goes into expand, like what's a recommended user, the throughput, if you do the firewall. So just an FYI on that. And like I said, as we go through these and we start bringing up more options, I'm pulling these up just so you can get a visual representation, because like I said, the Vizio stencils were a little outdated. All right, so
the 84 is a great model.
Yes.
Not knocking it.
And so we've got the security set up. We're able to protect our users. We're able to ensure that we're getting to the locations that we need to. What's the next thing that we need to worry about? Well, of course, then is connectivity. We need to ensure that if we're on site, that we can get to the locations we need to. We can talk to each other. We can access WebEx. We can access our email. We have probably the need either for printers. This is where we also need to plug in our 10 gig servers. And so what we went with here was the MS350. They're 48 ports. They are stackable, so that way it's just one logical device instead of having to worry about each one of these. Just like in the normal enterprise Catalyst world, it's easier to manage one than trying to manage 5 at different times and get into those and make the changes. You can also do routing on these MS350s, and so we'll put the routing from our data data subnets on these, so that when they can pass on. You can put ACLs on these. You can do the way that you want to shape who has access to where they need to go before they get funneled off to RMX or out to the internet. And you can also switch those however you want. I'm just trying to show that these switches are very powerful with the ability to do routing. They also have PoE, and there are 10 gig connections. So as we talked about on-prem, we're not going to have much, but we will have Active Directory servers that we can use. We'll just use the mouse, that's fine. I don't know if you can see it. Is it showing up on the screen at all? I'll do this.
It was earlier. There it is.
So, and then we'll use these 10 gig connections because we're not aggregating any other access ports anywhere through our site. We can use these for our 10 gig connection to any servers or anything on-prem that we've got. So although we don't have a data center and Meraki does not have data center switching, we were still able to accomplish the needs that we have for our business by plugging it into the 10 gig ports that we've got. And you can do the exact same thing. You can turn these into port channels. The things that we're used to doing, we can do within the MS350s. And it's any different tier on the MS2.
Definitely. I mean, there used to be a huge feature gap between the Meraki MS switches and the Catalyst. And, as you pull up the different models here, we kind of talk about that. But anymore, I mean, we support stacking, we support full PoE. We have aggregation switches on the Meraki line that go up to 100 gig ports even. So we really can do pretty much anything there now. The one I really like talking about, the latest and greatest and new exciting thing is definitely the MS390. What's really interesting about that is that switch actually uses Cisco Catalyst ASICs. I mean, that's more or less a Cisco Catalyst 9K within the guts with the Meraki software and Meraki shell built around it. So now we have full features such as, fully flexible NetFlow and adaptive policy, which is really awesome when it comes to securing your workstations. You can do SGT, so TrustSec on the Cisco side, right? We can do that natively within Meraki now. And there's even a multi-domain story there where we can do adaptive policy on the Meraki side and regular TrustSec on the Cisco side that can all work together. We can integrate with ICE and we can sync policies across those and all that. So, really allows us to be dynamic with what users can access as they kind of move around the network.
Yep. And let's say that as we spin up our company, we realized that we want to put more security. Rather, ACLs are really hard to put on these switches. I don't want to update this all the time. I'd rather just be able to drag and drop people into groups and assign those groups. Well, it's as simple as plugging in or bringing up a new ICE server. You bring it online for your environment. These MS390s, if you went with that route, can then apply the security group tags to actually bring that whole picture together that you're kind of used to, or at least starting to see with the Catalyst. We can bring it into your Meraki world too. And it's very simple to be able to, and it's just a chart. You can kind of pick and choose who you want to have the access to, and it will push it down into it. So the MS390 is very cool in that aspect, that we're bringing what we're used on the enterprise side into the MS without having to do a lot of different, because you can still access it through the dashboard, which is what makes Meraki so great. One spot to be able to access and configure and see what's happening. So like I said, we're just bringing these up to kind of show you how there's a lot of different models depending on your need. For our branch, we wanted to go with 48 ports just to make sure that if we ever needed more, it was already there. If we needed to do aggregation and we had more uplinks, or if we had different floors, we also have aggregation switches that we could select from and put those in. And like Jay said, all the way up to 40 gig, we've got just a lot of options that you can go with if you need to
100
go that
gig
route.
uplinks now.
Yep.
Yep.
So, all right. So we've got the
just like the
connectivity.
MXs, the MS switches come big and small. Yeah, we have them in almost every flavor: PoE, PoE Plus, UPoE, all the way down to 8 ports. So.
Yep. All right, so we've got security, we've now got routing, we've got access. Well, how are we going to, if we're going to be a business where people are going to come in and if they need access and not everybody's going to have a cable to plug in, we need wireless. Well, great, we have options for that too. I went with the MS32 on these just because, again, these are what was on the stencils. You can choose whichever ones you want, but plug them into our access ports that we've got. Oh, go ahead.
I love our strategy for which models we pick for our business here.
I want the picture of the word.
I think it goes without saying, the MRs, wireless is really how Meraki got started, right? They've been doing it a long time, and it's just flat out easy. Like Meraki does it really, really well. It's really how they cut their teeth and why Cisco is so attracted to acquiring them in the first place.
Yep. The most amazing thing about Meraki Wireless is you plug in your AP, you go into your dashboard, and you can instantly start spinning up SSIDs, a guest SSID, and if you do that, then if it's going out to the internet, you don't even have to have your own DHCP server. They can run it from inside there. So if you're only looking for a wireless option and you weren't trying to then accompany your internal users, you just needed to spin up something that had internet access, getting the MR any model gives you that access to be able to spin that up and start putting on. You can even do PCI networks to put on there and start putting security controls on those SSIDs that you're spinning up. And again, you're managing it through one spot. You're not having to go, which controller do I have this on? I need to go into, log in and all that stuff there. And then you also still get the reporting off these MRs. So you can actually see hosts that are connected. How long are they staying? And another really nice thing with doing the Meraki to Meraki is these things will know that they are like devices. And I think this is what I heard, but then they're even able to kind of tell that if it's in your same domain, to know that these are in your same org, to be able to pull that stuff in. If it's not, you can then have these things block it to where almost like port security based off what's allowed inside your org. And so there's a lot of cool options that if you go with Meraki and you start connecting everything, that as they work together, there's a little bit more security in the aspect that if it's not part of it, you can have it auto block until you can go in and provision it as you want. So like I said, my goal is to kind of just throw in the icons on there, but we'll go to the sheets to kind of talk about each one of these. And we do have Wi-Fi 6 too, MRs, and so that's really good.
That's why I'm so disappointed about the MR32s. We're not going to get Wi-Fi 6 on those. I'd rather have 36s in there.
So, well, we had to skimp on the hardware budget, so they can't.
We are just a measly startup, right? Earlier we mentioned adaptive security on the MS390 switches. We do support those on the Wi-Fi 6 WAPs as well. So that's where it becomes really exciting, in my opinion, because as my users float around the campus as it grows, right, from one little office to a big campus, we can enforce those security policies across that entire network, regardless of where they are, based on that user, not based on IPs or subnets or anything like that.
Yep. Yeah, it's so much easier to not have to remember IPs and spreadsheets and all like that. I've done those, and you end up with an endless tab of stuff that you're like, oh my gosh, are we even using this
So
still?
if anybody out there is playing marketing buzzword bingo right now, intent-based networking, that's what we're talking about. That's what we like to call it.
And with the on the MRs, we do have the ability to put external antennas on there. So if you're trying to reach different, or you actually want to do different types of coverage rather than worrying about the position of the AP, you can put the antennas on to get the actual focus on those locations that you want. And then depending on
We
the
have
density,
we do have indoor and outdoor WAP models as well, and
yep,
indoor and outdoor antennas. Kind of to that point, we have sector and patch antennas. So, I have some customers for outdoor coverage. They're using like a sector type antenna for more widespread coverage. We can also do point-to-point wireless with these.
yeah,
In fact, since most of them now are dual radio, you can do point-to-point and client serving on the same WAP. So I was actually just working on a design yesterday for a customer that has a short gap, like 200 feet. They want to shoot wireless across, but also do client serving. So we're going to shoot point-to-point wireless on the 2.4 radios, serve clients on both ends with 5 gigahertz.
yep. I was working with a customer for an idea that they have a lot of people that walk through their areas, but they also have like a shack or something that's not able to get connectivity with either fiber, or you can't run a Cat5 underground without doing special treatment with them and the distances, which, would it still be good? That the idea of using the wireless to connect those, but then also providing the coverage for users that are either going to that shack to still access it, or at least know. And this is the really amazing things, and I mean, we can talk all day about features with this. That's even more exciting than starting your business, is the ability to start doing the Bluetooth awareness of these are how many devices that came on. These devices then follow this heat map, and so you can be aware of, if Jay and I are looking, we're like, nobody's using this conference room, and we can look at our heat map and realize that, oh, well, maybe we need to adjust. Maybe this is where we put our presentation one, and then we can put internal meetings over here. No different than with this customer that was worried about, and we want to know how many times people come up to the shack and may not even do a transaction and just like look and then they can leave. And if you can do API stuff with those, you can then reference that if they walk away, send them a coupon or something to say, hey, here's $1 off the next time you want. And so just to incentivize that, they may not have done it then, but you can reach out to them by doing APIs, which Meraki is extremely open into, to be able to kind of do some of those cool features with it. But yeah, we just wanted to show the hardware. There's external, internal. Um, like I said, you can buy the accessories, the mounting kits. So for us, we went with just when we won't have a Wi-Fi 6. I know Jay's sad. It's all right. Maybe if we start doing well, we can upgrade.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we've did security. We've did our ports. We were able to get connectivity. We've got wireless now, so we can actually have people come in. They can log on. They can still check their emails while we're chatting with them. Well, isn't that everything? Well, no. There's
There's
so
more.
much
Of course
more
there's
that we need to
more.
talk about. These are the ones that you may not be aware of, or at least not in your forefront when you're thinking about Meraki. And a lot of those are device manager. So for our business, maybe people want to have their own like, hey, Jay's a Mac user. I want to be able to just bring my device in. I like the apps I have on it. I don't want to have to use what you have. Well, how am I going to make sure that device meets the criteria we want if you're going to access anything that's internal? Meraki's got system managers to have an MDM solution to where you can put security on those that you don't meet. If you don't meet this criteria, you're not allowed the access you need. You can, oh, hey, my device is stolen. I need to make sure you can't do it. You lock it. You can enable it based by GPS locations on, well, if you're inside this radius, I'm going to allow you the options of access you need. But the moment you leave, you're just going back to basic, internet access, but you're going to lose your apps. And so we'll kind of talk about the MDM. Another thing that if we mention it is that everything's going with the cloud. I've got to have some way to know how my apps are doing out there. How am I doing with reaching locations? Meraki's got Meraki Insight that tells you what your app performance is. And so if Office 365 is having a rough day, it will tell you the score that, hey, this is a little bit lower than normal. These other ones are fine, and it's not your internet that you're having issues with. Connectivity fine. It looks like whatever you're accessing for Office 365 is bad, and then you can use that to contact support.
Yeah, I mean, we're network guys, right? And how often do we get those tickets that this app isn't working? It must be a network problem.
Yep.
So we're looking to shorten that mean time to innocence metric.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, almost all the time it's like, yeah, it must be the network. And at least you have a tool that can show that. I mean, it's not going to fix the problem for you, but education and awareness is so important to know where the next steps are and who you need to contact. So that Meraki Insights has the ability to do that. And then lastly is, oh yeah, we probably want to worry about site security too. I want to know if I have people waiting outside. I want to know if there was ever an incident. I want to know if something ever happened internally. If there's, like, and I say we have hardware from vendors that we're showing. I want to make sure nobody ever steals that. I'll put a camera on it. That Meraki's got cameras, and these are very intelligent cameras that you can choose that anytime a certain area actually has movement, flip off an alert. I want the, so let's say anything after 5, if I ever have something pop up on the front door, I want to be alerted so I can either start watching it live. I can then see what's happening, but you can set alerts up if you want to worry about that. There's the ability to do retention to where, well, maybe you have 90 days that you have to have storage for, and you're worried that you're going to run out of space. You can change options to base that. If there's no movement, you can compress those. If you want to bring down the 4K down to whatever quality you want, you can extend it. And inside the GUI, it shows you as you mess with those settings how long you can actually last. And sometimes you can, 120 days pass. But let's say you need, I can't ever delete anything. I need to have it all. Well, I don't know if it's been released or at least it's in the works that they're trying to give a cloud option of, okay, well, you can take this off and put it somewhere else. That I think that's coming if it's not already.
Yeah. So we have cloud storage today within Meraki, and we just released the ability in the very last release to do streaming to third-party video recorders or dashboard type applications. So. Yep. Yeah, I get to sit here and talk about Meraki Meraki cameras for the entire rest of the hour. Those things are so cool, and it's definitely something I want to focus an entire session on sometime soon, because we never think about cameras as network guys, right? That's up to a facilities team or security team or something. The cool stuff we can do with these, it's awesome, and especially when you start talking about the third-party integrations. We've been talking about all the API hooks and stuff that all the other Meraki products support. The cameras too, we can send this footage up to Amazon and do emotion recognition. So say you're running a drive-through restaurant and you want to know, are customers leaving happy or angry or sad? And with some sort of accuracy, we can determine that and put a label on those customers' reactions. So there's all sorts of really wild, awesome use cases. One I heard this morning. There's a big pizza chain here in the Midwest that just bought them, and they're recording video of the pizzas going into and coming out of the oven and using that to determine quality metrics. I mean, I never would even thought to do that. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. There's a lot of features that you can use those for. And I mean, from my personal experience, because it had a network connection, it was my responsibility to make sure these things work. So if you ever get a chance to be part of those conversations on picking camera vendors, at least it's Cisco. It's going to work well due to CDP neighbor and the ability inside your environment, and you can access it from the Meraki dashboard. That if somebody goes and they just buy the cheapest option from a bidding, you have no clue what type of hardware is on those cameras. You don't know if those things are trying to reach out somewhere, so you have to then extremely lock down their access for it, which hopefully you're already doing. But there's so many fears about a department or a group of people that buy something, they plug it in, this is my camera system. I need you to take care of it, though. You're like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
So at least
that's always the way it goes.
Yep.
Or then, it's like, what's the bandwidth hog at this site? You go look it up. Oh, it's one of the cameras in the NVR. That's managed by some other team. Yeah.
Yep. Well, for our business, like I said, we don't want a big physical footprint. And so the idea that we don't have to put an NVR inside a networking closet somewhere that's going to take up 6 racks and pay for maintenance and all this stuff, we're going with Meraki cameras because I can access it from my phone. I can access it anywhere. I can delegate who I need access to, and it's all there inside the dashboard again in one spot. So, all right. So, hey, things are going great. Jay and I, we've got our spot open. We've got employees. People are reaching out to us asking for help. but we're realizing that a lot of maybe we have people that's farther away that we're not able to reach. We can't, or we need ability to bring in talent that doesn't live where we are, and we want to make sure they have the connectivity to be able to give them the best experience. So let's say we hire somebody from Chicago that's really smart in this particular spot, don't have a way to get him here. How am I going to get him part of our team? And so we're going to focus now on rapid growth, expansion, and how we can do remote capabilities. And so let's say we open up a branch, we'll say we open up one in Wichita. How are we going to bring that branch
I
online?
appreciate that.
You're welcome. Hey, I don't want you to drive anymore, so you can. So we're gonna talk about on the branch side. It's really simple to expand and connect when you're already using the Meraki or going to a Meraki. For us, we're gonna go with an MX64. We're going to actually enable SD-WAN on this. That way we can bring that site online to the HQ. And so what I mentioned down here is we are going to put an MX100 at our HQ to be able to handle the SD-WAN that's going to be being built, because we still have the other MX that's doing our filtering for our content, all that stuff that we're going to, I don't want to overtax that. I'm going to put an MX100 to handle any of these remote sites, any VPN that we're going to spin up, that we'll use that to go with it. We've got the most important thing, like we've talked about, is we got a lot of cloud. Well, we're going to do DIA for a lot of the cloud apps to understand that I don't want you going all the way back to our HQ to access those. If you can, just go directly out. What we're going to use is Insight to ensure that that location is happening the way it's supposed to, so we know our workers are having that experience that they should have, whether they're on the HQ side or at the branch. We'll put and one thing I'll pull up after this is a mobile gateway. So not only do we have wireless APs, we now actually have a mobile gateway to use as a cellular connection backup for a lot of sites that maybe you can't get more than one ISP. And you don't want to use really expensive other users. And I want to be able to control everything from one spot. That's like the big thing here is the ability to go to our dashboard and control our whole organization. So we can use a mobile gateway, spin that up, spin it on Verizon. We can put it on AT&T, be able to get those sites that might be remote access onto the internet. And so we'll go with another little switch here if we need to add on more ports. We've got our MRs there. We've got our MVs for site security, because again, we worry about our site secured, and we make sure that our hardware is fine. And we don't have to add any more stuff inside our data closet to bring those on. We can have a really small spot to put on the MX if we need more access for one use switching. If we can get by without a wireless, if we're really worried about costs, we can do the MX to broadcast it SSID if we think it can cover that region that we're in. So just by doing this, we literally just brought a branch online. We didn't have to do a whole lot with it. And a lot of these, if we're able to, if we don't have to go on site, you can plug in. As long as it's already got internet access, you can manage it from the cloud. So you don't have to be on site to do any of this stuff. You can plug it in, bring it online, and configure it through the dashboard to get everything set up. So there's not cost of trying to send people locations to spin up these sites, when it's easier to just, all right, let me know when it's on, all right, and then I'll configure it now.
Yeah, I mean, really, the branch site looks a lot like our HQ did, right? We got an MX appliance, we got MS switching, we've got the MR WAPs, all the same parts and pieces. The big thing I love to talk about Meraki is that SD-WAN solution. It is the simplest SD-WAN I've ever seen. I mean, Meraki is all about making things easy. That's like the Meraki life. And SD-WAN definitely falls under that with Meraki.
Yep. All right, so we've got a branch, like I also mentioned. Well, how do we bring workers that are highly talented, but we can't bring them into our office area? Well, let's talk about remote workers. We're going to go with the Z3 Telework Gateway, the ability to basically spin that up online to where their experience at home is no different than if they were actually in the office plugging in. So for us, let's say we're going to give them a Cisco headset so they can use WebEx calling to be able to do meetings. They have that campus connection while they're there. And so if you give them a Desk Pro or any way to do video conferencing, it's like they are literally at your office. And the only thing we've done is we activated the Z3 to do the VPN back to our concentrator to be able to bring that VPN connection online to where you can be anywhere and you don't have to be in the office to still be part of the team and contributing. So another nice thing, and again, it's managed through the dashboard. We don't have to worry about other features or wherever I'm going to go to control all this stuff. And it's simple enough to where plug it in, it comes online, and they're able to start accessing it. So, and these
they're
also
they're really easy to set up.
Yep.
I mean, that's definitely the biggest selling point to me on these things. You know, especially if you have remote workers that are floating around, or you know, maybe today I'm working from home, but tomorrow I'm working in a customer office or something. As long as I have internet access, I plug that puppy in and it VPNs right in for me. It's super easy. No workload on the end user or on IT management.
You can also broadcast an SSID these too. So like the same campus that's being broadcasted and your HQ or your branch can then be broadcasted. So they don't have to run cables too. They can just, as long as that's online, connect and they're back to where they would be. So want to take a moment to show, all right, what does this look like from an actual, more of a diagram connectivity way? So we have our HQ, we've got our branch sites, and like I said, the branches look almost exactly similar to the HQ, and the ability to just bring these on with SD-WAN to where we can either do the failover if you want dual, those options are just clicks inside the dashboard to configure the SD-WAN you want. So it's extremely easy to bring those online. We have our cellular backups. Each branch has just one thing for connectivity. It doesn't have to be 48. Maybe it's just one office that's got a conference room to be able to do site meetings that we can just do a little 8-port one with. So it doesn't have to be a 48. You want an access point because systems manager, and we're getting the application health that we care about with Meraki Insight for all these locations. And we're able to bring on remote workers to bring in the best talent. So you don't even have to be here to be able to contribute. So that way it opens up your workforce much more than rather what you're limited to wherever your branch or your HQ is too. So this is what it looks like, as simple as bringing all your MXs, enabling SD-WAN, and connecting it back to the internet server you've got at the HQ. So
you mentioned cloud earlier, but we were really talking about like SaaS applications.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, our workloads are starting to expand. We're starting to think about maybe moving some compute and storage up to some private cloud offerings. I love cats.
Yep.
Cats in the cloud is perfect, man. Like I need this picture when we're done.
Well, it was one of those like, all right, well, let's say a lot of this happens for a lot of people out of nowhere. It's suddenly like, oh, and now you have to deal with the cloud. And so I think what we'll do is a gotcha that a lot of people get is we have Office 365, and suddenly Microsoft says, hey, why don't you use this Azure cloud that we got spun up for you if you want to use it? And so we have teams that are wanting to access it. Well, how am I going to secure my connection to this cloud that we're going to start using? This is where we can use the VMX100 to be able to spin up a virtual instance of our Meraki MX inside Azure to be able to do the site-to-site VPN that we're expecting from our branches to be able to start putting those limitations in that's happening in the cloud. And so the VM just runs in your instance inside either AWS or Microsoft. I just picked Microsoft because they throw it at you with your 365. But if you're an AWS customer, you can spin it up there. It's a site-to-site auto VPN. When that VM comes online, it's just like if you plugged it in any other site. It's got internet connectivity. It's reaching out to the control plane to then you can start configuring and set it up how you want. And it's just like any other MX. It's inside the Meraki dashboard to configure in one location again. So one spot for all these things to be able to control. And I think I was due to go back to the site. Sorry. Yeah, so these were the cameras. Skip that, so sorry about that. Wanted to show that we do have external and internal cameras. There's ability to do fisheye if you want like that full 360, and it's really cool. You can actually zoom in on spots without stopping the recording on the rest. It's just the ability to pull it in. And then if you want wide angle, if you need the narrow focus, so a lot of options that we that route.
They're Wi-Fi capable. I mean, that's another good point. If you don't have, yep.
And this is where we had talked about insight to understand that the end users having issues out to one of the locations. Everything's visible inside the dashboard. It's telling you the scores for these apps that you care about. And then this is the mobile device manager where you can set up the rules, what the groups you want to have access to it, deploy client VPN based on what we have for systems manager. So sorry I was lagging a little bit on some of these that we had talked about. And then
we're doing it live. It's okay. We have no playbook here.
That's right. We're just trying to show we bring the company up online, and this is so cool with the mobile gateway to, like I said, its ability to plug this in to be able to get you another connection if you're not able to manage through the dashboard. And so just wanted to show that this is what it looks like for the mobile gateway. I think that's the rest of breaking out for the website. So we're going to go ahead and continue through here to wrap it all up. We have that. So the complete picture, we started off at an HQ where we had one MX, we had ports for connectivity, we had wireless. We're using our MDM solution to manage those insights to worry about our applications, and we have security with our cameras. We didn't have a lot of on-prem costs with it. And I think this is where we want to talk about the idea that all of this is also an expected cost. There's no surprises. When you buy Meraki, there's licenses that you're buying that add the time occurrence for your organization, so you can know how much your costs are going to be. You can plan for that, and then, like I said, we brought on our branches. It's as simple as we bought another MX, enabled SD-WAN on those. It creates the VPN back into our HQ, and as simple as each branch is managed through our dashboard, so it's one place you can control all of these, your SSIDs, your cameras, everything is all in one spot. We're bringing on remote workers, so they're not just happening in the branch. We're bringing people anywhere in the world that we think have good talent to bring them back in to make us a better company for our customers. And now suddenly we want to do things in the cloud. We have the ability, without having to do anything different, to spin up a VMX in and inside our cloud to have that holistic picture that this is it. This is our whole company. We're able to spin it all out. We're able to get security. We're able to get everything we need for these sites by using the Meraki, which is much more than just switching, wireless, and security.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big thing to really hit on is right there, manage everything with the dashboard. Everything we've talked about today is managed within that cloud Meraki dashboard. It's super easy. It's definitely the easy button. But it's gotten so powerful now that, I kind of feel like back in the day, we kind of looked down on Meraki, like, oh, that's for rookies. Like, that's for sysadmins that need to run networks somewhere. But it's gotten so much more feature-rich and powerful. I think a lot of folks are kind of afraid to give up the CLI, right? And I had somebody tell me one time, you're not giving up the CLI with Meraki, you're just flipping from a CLI to an API, right? Yeah. You can still do so much orchestration and automation via that Meraki API. Practically everything you can do in the dashboard and sometimes more, you can do within the API. So it's awesome, not just for the third-party integrations we've kind of touched on, but also for your own, homebrewed orchestration and automation. I have several customers that, run a ton of WAN sites, right? And it's like, okay, we're going to stand up another store. We could pay a network guy to go build all that out in Meraki, or we just script it out, right? They have a script. They plug in the store number, the address, and everything's cookie cutter. So they hit send, that thing goes out, hits the Meraki API, builds out the network, builds out the configurations for the MX, the MS, the MR, the switches, the WAPs, everything. And then they're ready just to ship the gear out and hook it up. I mean, they don't even need smart hands on site to do that at that point.
Yeah, that is the really nice thing of the aspect that if especially for us, if we're worried about expenses and we're trying to keep things simple, and Jay and I are not able to, and I mean, let's say we have a technical person that if we're not going to do that ourselves, that we can't tax them with having to go on site to do a pretty routine job of, I just need you to spin this up to bring the site online, to where we could have someone just plug it in and you can do everything. And this is a great thing with Meraki, you can manage it anywhere. So if you can't go on site because there's, let's say COVID for a perfect example, like everything's locked down, you can still access or do maintenance on these locations without having to go on site because it's all done through the dashboard. If you're on vacation and you need to do things or something's going down, you can access it through the dashboard. And then the security we can put on inside the dashboard too, to do dual factor authentication. So that way, if you're worried about someone taking a password, at least you have the ability to, well, you also need to have the second part to be able to get in. So you can even the dashboard can get secure with who's going to access it. So yeah, it's amazing what you can accomplish with Meraki when when you're used to just seeing it just do the basics, that you can run a whole business and not just the technical side, but all the other aspects too, and to be able to get analytics from these, like we talked about with these cameras. You know how often people are either accessing those, like going back and across. You can use the wireless to get how often people are staying at locations. So if you have an exhibit, how long are people staying in that building? What's that path that people are taking? Are they skipping a whole spot? So you're then able to even bring information upstream to try and make changes. So you're constantly evolving to whatever the needs are of the customers, depending on what your needs are. And like you, perfect example of a pizza chain that quality assurance that when we put it in, it comes out, it's coming out as it's supposed to, that you probably wouldn't have thought of, but you have the ability with Meraki to get that information and use it, and it's extremely open to APIs and be able to do what you want for that programmability. So I would say Multicast LLC was pretty simple to be able to spin this up to manage all these wanted. I just want like the complete picture that we're able to just spin all this up and to be able to do it in one location is extremely powerful for a pretty small team that would be trying to manage this.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I know, today's show is pretty high level, right? Like
Yes.
we covered a lot of products, and we weren't able to go as in depth as we normally like to, but we were trying to cover a lot of ground at once. So hoping this kind of gives folks some different ideas of some different products that Meraki has that maybe you did or didn't know or hadn't seen updates on in a while. But we'll definitely do deeper dives on all of these in the future. I mean, we could easily spend an hour on each one of these products talking about the technical nuances now.
Yep. And I think that's one of the things Jay's going to do up on the next series is actually start talking about SD-WAN. And so we'll maybe even go in some of these features with the EMXs and how they work, how easy they are to spin up. So we have this high level view of what Meraki can do. These next episodes or series that we get into is how do we do it? And what does it look like? And what are they actually capable of? But the ability to know that our total solution with Meraki can solve all the business needs. That if we were spinning up our LLC, we could handle all that with just Meraki with just one dashboard to be able to know where things are going. So I think that was everything I had. So hopefully makes sense. Hopefully you're happy with our business plan. I'll submit off the
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to get started building this thing out. It should be easy.
That's simple. So, well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Like I said, I think Jay, the next one you're gonna maybe bring up some SD-WAN, then we'll start planning out. So expect some updates from us on when we can do that. And something I want to mention is all the previous recordings that we have are going to stay in I'm calling it our video lockbox of, you can go there, you can access any of the old ones. If there's information that you ever want to show, or hey, I found you want to pass the link on, you don't even have to register to be able to access the link. So access it and then just register for the new ones that we have. And I think we're even with the middle of the year. I think Jay and I are planning are still to continue the rest with every 2 weeks of trying to do these. We might do some different content adding, and so we'll make sure we put that in the email that we might do some videos about how-tos, more of, if this is what you're wanting to do, follow these steps. If you're wanting to do 802.1x and ICE, here's how we go through the steps. But we might start adding a few more episodes of much more how-to rather than even talking about what we can do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys have any ideas for things you want to hear about or things you want to see, lob them over to us. We're totally open to ideas. So
absolutely,
there's plenty to talk about. There's lots of Cisco stuff out there, and
yes,
especially once we start talking about how-tos and troubleshooting tips, there's plenty to cover. No doubt.
All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Awesome.
Have a great weekend, and I will see you all on the next one.
Yeah. Thanks.